Sony, what are you playing at? Are you trying to destroy the MCU like Warner Brothers are trying to destroy the DCU? Oh, that's a bit harsh, wasn't it? But seriously, what's happening with the movie? What's going on, Sony? What's going on with Spider-Man? More importantly, what's happening with the game? Let's take a look at some of the facts, shall we? So let's begin with the game. So, just to clear some things up, Marvel own the game rights to all the Marvel characters, or the vast majority of the MCU. So we Iron Man, Captain America, Guardians of the Galaxy, and now things like Deadpool, X-Men, all stuff like that. All the game rights to everything. Not necessarily all the movie rights, but all the game rights. They also own the game rights to Spider-Man. Against popular belief, people think Sony own the game rights to Spider-Man, but it's actually Marvel. This is evident in stuff like previous Spider-Man games have all been multi-platform. Even the one that came out in Amazing Spider-Man, which was made by the movie was made by Sony, but the game was made by Marvel, thus it was on all platforms. But as part of the deal for Spider-Man being in the MCU, so they could protect Spider-Man and put him into the MCU, there was a deal struck up where PS4 gets exclusive rights to Spider-Man. Now, this originally wasn't going to be Spider-Man. Well, there was no decision on Spider-Man. The decision was made by Insomniac. So Marvel approached Insomniac and said, we'd like you to make a superhero game. And Insomniac said, yes, sure, we will go with Spider-Man, because we've already got a program in place, which is basically the Sunset Overdrive sort of setup, which basically runs just as Spider-Man would have. We just got to tweak it, improve it, blah, blah, blah. Marvel went, sure, brilliant, fine, go for it. Sony, you can lead on this. Go for it, have your game. And then as a result of that, Sony made 100%, as well as Insomniac, profits from the game. So that was all before all what happened with the mix-up with the movies, where Sony and Disney have now fallen out regarding Spider-Man in the movies. Just moving on from the game, moving back to the game, it says here, as it says here, it's a long way from confirmation that there will be another Spider-Man game now. So previously there have been talks, and Insomniac come straight out after the success of Spider-Man and said, yes, we'd love to make another game. Now it's a bit to and froing. But let's move on, shall we? Actually, before I move on, because I'm sure you're going to get people who go, no, Sony own the game rights. Sony own it. They do. This is two reasons. One, Marvel is plastered all over all the Sony marketing for the Spider-Man game. As you can see, Marvel all over it. Secondly, if you can prove to me that Sony own the game rights, because there's been no talk or no confirmation. There's been loads of people on Twitter, all over the media, saying, what's happening with the game? What's happening with the game? Sony at no point have come out and said, don't worry, it's all fine. You know, because what the problem here is, obviously, is Sony now have bought Insomniac Games on the back of the success of Spider-Man. But now if they lose the Spider-Man franchise in the game, then you've just bought Insomniac and you're going to chuck out another Spyro Ratchet and Clank game, or another Sunset Overdrive game. Sony, as good as they are, Insomniac, they're good. They're a good dev, but you probably paid a lot of money for Sunset Overdrive 2. Just be quite frank, really. But if you can come forward and show that Sony own the game rights with any hard evidence, I mean, I haven't got hard evidence, but I'm putting evidence out there. You've got Marvel slapped all over it. You've got previous games that are multi-platform, and but let's go on. I digress. Let's go on. So originally a deal was struck that Disney and Sony would share Spider-Man. Disney / Marvel would get a piece of the pie with Spider-Man being in the MCU, which boosts its popularity, which it did massively, and extend on their universe, which is what they're trying to do, expand it into a big, massive franchise. And Sony would benefit by making money, basically, for doing nothing. because at the end of the day, what happened was Disney put up all the cost. They paid for everything with Spider-Man and the movies and everything, all the movies that come out recently and Spider-Man and everything. Disney put up all the costs, paid for everything. However, Sony made 95% of the gross from those movies, and Disney only got 5% plus merchandise rights. On top of that, remember, Sony also made 100% profit from the game rights as well. So Sony made a lot of money from the Spider-Man movies. So, and yeah, there's been several now. I think Spider-Man's been, so he's been in Far From Home, Homecoming, both the Avengers movies, Civil War, 5 movies he's been in now. So it got to a point where Disney said, this 95%, 5% deal is good and all, but we're spending a lot of money and we're not making much back from Spider-Man. So here's a deal. How about if we go 50-50 on it? That sounds pretty fair. Fair dinkum, that sounds, 50-50. In my books, 50-50 sounds fair, especially when you're not putting up any of the costs. You're making 50% of something you've not spent any money on. And Sony said no. Well, actually, Sony didn't just say no. So, yep, Sony didn't just say no to the deal, but they actually threw it back at Disney and Marvel and said, we don't need you anymore. We don't need the Marvel. Thank you for making us lots of money and making Spider-Man popular again after we keep destroying him and killing the poor fella. But we don't need you anymore because we made Venom and it was a massive success. Because Venom was a really good movie, right? Yeah, no, we're not in agreement on that, no. Sony think Venom was a fantastic movie. Actually, it did do well in China. It was a massive hit in China and made them all their money. Until that point, on Rotten Tomatoes, I actually think the film stank. I didn't think the film was great at all. Poor old Tom Hardy. The film wasn't great. The CGI was very average. And just generally the film was no good. And it didn't time any of the Spider-Man universe or even Spider-Man, which is just weird. So, so Sony threw it back in Marvel and said, no, we're going to go on our own. We can make better films than you now, basically, in a nutshell. Sony. So, after Sony throwing it back into Marvel's faces that they can make better movies, the only thing I can imagine is Disney went back and said, okay, we will take the game rights back and you can't have another game. At which point I think Sony must have said something along the lines of,
what?
At which point I can imagine Sony then went back to Disney and said, 30% and we get 70%. Which Disney are then mulling over thinking, but then Sony have said, and you can have Venom, but after we've boasted how successful he was, we're just going to give him to you. Which now Disney are thinking, really? Hello. So, that's where it is at the moment. It's all gone quiet, except Amazon. There's been a lot of talk now come back up, which was been floating around in 2017. Amazon to purchase Sony Pictures. I think Sony Pictures has been a dying horse for ages, other than Into the Spider-Verse and the Spider-Man movies, but they've only made a profit from that thanks to Marvel. All their other films are really sucking, to be honest, and they have been for a long while. The recent Men in Black movie was a failure. Even the Tarantino movie they took on just did not perform as well as you expect from a Tarantino movie. I want to watch it in cinema. It's actually a very good movie. But yes, Sony Pictures could possibly go to Amazon. If that happens in the contract, all movie rights to Spider-Man automatically go back to Disney, Marvel anyway. So we're going to see how that progresses. But in other news, which is very interesting, which is also going on, Disney and Sony's in-game competitors, Microsoft, are now in collaboration. They're now teamed up for a 5-year partnership to create and distribute content on Microsoft Azure. Now, you're probably all aware of this, but Disney are making their own channel, their own movie channel, where they're going to put all their new series and all their movies on their own channel. Obviously, this could be part of the Microsoft Azure deal. Will it end there? or will Disney offer them more things? You know, will they offer them things like game rights and more promotional material and stuff like that? Will that happen? That's yet to find out. But it's interesting to see now Microsoft and Disney, on the back of Sony and Disney falling out, Microsoft and Disney partnered up basically in the same month as that deal collapsing for Sony and Disney. So the future of the movies is still in turmoil. The future of the future of Spider-Man 2 is silent now. We have not seen any news since March, since Insomniac said, yes, we'd love to make another game. Then Sony bought them. Then Sony messed up the whole deal with Spider-Man. And now it's gone completely silent. So watch this space.
Update.
Okay, since I last recorded what I was basically talking about Spider-Man being owned by Sony, which was a couple of days ago, and I've not yet got the video out, some new information has just come out. This is literally only 7 hours old. So Sony have come out and said they now own Sunset Overdrive, which is great for them because it's Insomniac. However, scrolling down, where is it? I've seen it. Oh, here we go. Right, so looking at this, PlayStation has since purchased this Marvel Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank developer, but Worldwide Studios chairman, Sean Layden, said he'd need to turn over the files for the full story. So he's kind of there accepting that there may not be a Spider-Man or Ratchet & Clank, possibly, game in the works. Now, before there was talking about Spider-Man 2 as if it was definite, obviously this is following on, as I've said for a long time, with the whole Disney debacle now. So, as they've said here clearly, they've clearly said Marvel Spider-Man, and they're going to have to turn over the files to actually review to see if there will be a game. Because in the text here, they're clearly saying Sunset Overdrive, yep, they want to make a second one. Spider-Man, not so sure anymore. So there we go. So I thought I'd quickly just chuck that in before I launch this video. Thank you all for watching. I'd love to see your comments below. Subscribe and share. And goodbye for now.